Finding out who the next avatar is going to be is a long and tedious process, but it's an important one. Every nation has a different formula to discover who the next avatar is going to be, but they are by no means perfect, as mistakes have happened in the past. Every avatar must go through this process, and honestly, I think it is one of those underrated aspects of Avatar because it's pretty fun to watch play out. In recent time, it's happened so differently for every single avatar, which leads me to believe it's going to be a big deal in the next Avatar series. After all, there's going to be a few changes with this series that'll have an impact on finding the next avatar. For starters, the past avatar lives are gone. Korra is effectively the first avatar. Not only that, but the series is taking place in a futuristic society. Lots of things could change from these implications alone, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We are going to be going over the lore of how the past avatars were discovered and see if we can use any of that information to find out how the next avatar will be found. With the air nomad avatars, the process of finding out who the next avatar is going to be is fairly simple, but it kind of only works because of their small population. After the previous avatar dies, the air nomads take their young children and set them in front of thousands of toys. If they are in fact the avatar, they will select the same 4 toys as every avatar before them. Then they would inform them of their avatarhood when they turn 16. But in Yangchen's case, she didn't even need to take this test or even be told she was the avatar because from an early age, Yangchen just knew she was the avatar. At first, the air nomads thought Yangchen was just really sick when she was young. She was falling into these extremely painful phases of fever and even epileptic fits. But eventually, during these fits, she began to scream the names of the past avatars and start saying these vague sentences, even at times having recollections of the past avatar's memories. This first became obvious to the air nomads when Yangchen would begin to speak with an Earth King avatar who had been dead for over 300 years. Yangchen never had to be told she was the avatar, or it's not even clear if she ever even took the test. She and everyone else already knew. Speaking of Avatar Yangchen, I've been having a good time listening to her audiobooks, and that's due to the amazing sound quality of today's sponsor, Raycon and their everyday earbuds. I've been using my Raycon earbuds for the past couple of weeks now, and they are seriously amazing. Not only do they have a nice and discreet look to them, fit amazing in your ears, but they also have the same audio quality as a lot of the bigger brands, but for half the price. This is definitely the time for you to get a pair because Raycon's everyday earbuds just got a massive upgrade. They've added multi-point connectivity, allowing you to pair with not 1, but 2 devices at once, and to make things even better, they now have active noise cancellation, which has been coming in handy for me and is by far one of my favorite features, along with its incredibly long 32-hour battery life. These are by far the most comfortable earbuds I've ever used. I find myself just casually using them every single day when I take my dog on a walk or I'm editing videos. In fact, I'm actually using them right now to edit this video. They've become an everyday necessity for me. If you want to support me and the channel, go do yourself a favor and get a pair for yourself. Just click the link in the description box down below or go to buyraycon.com/avatars to get 15% off your Raycon purchase, plus free shipping. The Earth Kingdom has a strange way of finding the next avatar that seems to be just a little bit inconsistent from everything we know. And luckily, I'm confident it won't be used for the next avatar after Korra, but let's talk about it because it made some pretty interesting storytelling. The Earth Kingdom avatars were traditionally identified through directional geomancy, a series of rituals designed to winnow through the largest and most populous of the 4 nations as efficiently as possible. Each time a special set of bone trigrams were cast and interpreted by an earthbending master. Half the Earth Kingdom would be ruled out as the location of the newborn avatar, then from there the remaining territory another half, then again another half. The possible locations would keep shrinking until searchers were brought to the doorstep of the Earth avatar child. The main problem with this method is it only works if the avatar and their family stay in the place they were born and never leave. This method failed to identify avatar Kyoshi because her parents left and were nomadic. Because of this, the people identifying the next avatar had to go to alternate methods, even trying the air nomad relic test, but ultimately failed with that method too. Eventually, they find a boy named Yoon who not only kind of resembled the previous avatar a little bit, but was also using his strategy to win Pai Sho games. These 2 things alone wouldn't be enough to identify him as the avatar, but when they found out how strong of a bender he was, they ultimately falsely identified him as the next avatar. Kyoshi would later be found out as the true avatar at the age of 16 after going into the avatar state and showing off avatar level bending in a battle with the 5th nation. Roku Roku was kind of like the golden standard for how this process should be. He was identified as the Avatar at a young age by the Fire Sages through their traditional method, which was never fully explained or really even touched upon at all, but that's a topic for another day. Then he would later be told he was the Avatar at the age of 16 and immediately begin his training. You already know, it's not an Avatar video if we don't mention our boy Aang. Aang was of course identified as the Avatar by the Air Nomad Relics test, but there was one key difference here. He was told he was an Avatar 4 years earlier than expected because of the war the Fire Nation was brewing. In adult life, Aang realized that his situation and many other situations of how the Avatar was identified, they just weren't cutting it. But he had a solution. Aang had the Order of the White Lotus take over the responsibility of finding and identifying the next Avatar. Luckily for them, they didn't really have to do much work because at the age of 3, Korra was already bending 3 of the elements and proudly introduced herself to the world as the Avatar. When we talk about the next Avatar series, there's a few things we have to bring up. As of right now, recording this video, the next Avatar series, setting, plot, timeline, everything has not been officially confirmed. We have rumors and pretty strong evidence that it exists, but nothing is confirmed. However, that could change pretty quickly. If you're watching this video in the future, let me know how wrong or right I ended up being. As of right now, we know that the next Avatar is going to be born in a cyberpunk world, most likely over 100 years from the events of The Legend of Korra. And no, for everybody that's about to comment, Korra died at a young age, that is from a fan comic. That is not canon. A lot can happen in 100 years. The Avatar world might look completely different, but I'm willing to bet only Republic City is advancing at a rapid rate. We saw in The Legend of Korra the leaps and bounds Republic City was making in technology, but most of the Earth Kingdom and other nations weren't really making that same progress. Ba Sing Se was practically the same as in Avatar: The Last Airbender. They were still using Gemini as their primary light source, so they're moving pretty slow. This leads me to believe that the next Avatar is not going to be born directly in the Earth Kingdom. Whether it be Omashu, Ba Sing Se, or a random village, it's just not happening. With the setting being a cyberpunk city, that pretty much leaves us in Republic City once again for another series. We know that the Avatar is most likely going to be born in Republic City, but how are they going to be identified? Korra lost the connections to the past lives. Using the traditional methods of finding the next Avatar probably just aren't going to work anymore. Those memories of the past Avatars are no longer with Rava. How are they going to select the same toys as the previous Avatars if those previous Avatars have been erased? The same logic can be said for all of the other methods too. Realistically, there's 2 ways they can do this. If they want finding the next Avatar to be emotional in a plot point, they can do this. Because Korra is the only other Avatar before the current Avatar, they are going to have a very strong connection to Korra. The White Lotus can go around with a box of a bunch of different items, but have one item in there that meant a lot to Korra, and see if they pull out that item or feel some sort of attachment to that said item. In this particular fan comic that I'm showing on the screen right now, they had the new Avatar pull out the necklace that Korra made Asami. I do like this method a lot because it just makes a lot of sense. This next Avatar is going to be the closest to Korra out of any Avatar will ever be. The other way they can do this is a little bit boring, but it's more of a real world approach to the situation. I saw this theory first on Antoine's channel, so go check him out, credit to him. Since this series takes place in the future, they're going to have actual hospitals with records. They should be keeping track of when every single baby is born and when every single death happens. Theoretically, they can just take the time of Korra's death and match it exactly to a time when a baby is born. We know this process is instant because the moment Roku died, Aang was born. So this should be a foolproof way of identifying the next Avatar for now on. Now, this method probably does make a little bit more sense and it is a lot more simple and has no room for error, but I think from a storytelling perspective, I'd much prefer the first option.